Gut Jackson Charitable Foundation e a missão de curar. Tem tradução simultânea, não é? Vocês podem pegar os fones de tradução simultânea para poder acompanhar aqui a palestra das pessoas. Daniela também vai subir ao palco, que a Daniela é um paciente de NMO, não é? E vai compartilhar com a tia Cinta esta apresentação. Então, nós temos um grande prazer de ter aqui também conosco a Daniela.
Bom dia. It's a tremendous honor to be here today. It was Dr. Lana who, as he mentioned, we know so well over a number of years. I want you to know that when he comes every year to our conference in Los Angeles, he brings you with him. And it's a beautiful thing, and we're just very, very pleased to be here with you today. Thank you, Dr. Lana, and your colleagues. Thank you very much for inviting us here today. It's a tremendous honor. First of all, I am Jacinta Bainey. I'm Executive Director of the foundation, Guthrie Jackson Charitable Foundation, and headquartered in Los Angeles, California. I've been with the foundation since it was first formed, which is now over 11 years. And I want to begin with telling you a story today that may not be unlike one that you experience. By the way, we're accustomed to having a patient day and having not just the patients, but the caregivers who equally matter to us, right? But we're also sharing the day with MS patients. And that's a really wonderful thing because we learn from each other. Although we know they're distinct diseases, there's always much to learn when we know about patients who are experiencing another demyelinating disease. So we're really, really thrilled you're here today. At the age of 15, one Saturday, Allie Guthrie was, and here you see Bill and Victoria Jackson, Bill Guthrie, and their daughter Allie. At the age of 15, one Saturday, Allie and her mother were in the car driving to go to see a movie. And all at once she said, my eye's hurting. And she described it as an eyeball headache. And she said, all at once their vision started becoming gray. She couldn't see out of that eye. And she knew immediately something was wrong. No warning, just an immediate event, which we call the first event an attack. And they went home, called their doctor, and soon found themselves seeing one doctor after another after another. Allie had the good fortune of having an early diagnosis in NMO, which is we've learned is a tremendous advantage. As with most diseases, the sooner you're diagnosed correctly, the sooner and the better chances you'll have of understanding what it is and how to treat it. It wasn't very long after that Bill and Victoria had reached out to me and others to please help them on this journey, because they soon learned that their daughter did have neuromyelitis optica, NMO. And they were very concerned because there was so little known about the disease, and here their 15-year-old daughter was presented with it. One of the first things that I was asked to do, and this was on July 15th, 2008, I'll never forget that first day. Our work officially began August 1, 2008, but I remember sitting at my desk and looking up neuromyelitis optica on the internet. There were 3 items. One was Eugene DeVic in Wikipedia. The other was a white paper from the National Institute of Health in the U.S. And the other was the discovery of the aquaportin for the water channel, known biomarker for the disease, Mayo Clinic, which you just heard about. There was nothing else, nothing on the internet. So we had a pretty, it wasn't a barren desert, but there was not much known publicly about our disease. So we began and immediately began plans to launch a website, and on that website have it serve as a resource to everyone internationally to help to learn more and more. And the very next thing we did, November 8th of 2008, it was only a few months later, we held our first conference. And the very first conference was scientific, clinical, and it was what we called our round table, because we always sit at round tables, we learn from each other. So it was our very first round table, that was 2008. 2009 was our first year to add a patient day, much like today. And we also learned that we learned so much from our NMO patients and our NMO caregivers. So that's our beginning. And from the very beginning, there we go. It's a little bashful today that here we are. So from the very beginning, founded in 2008, from then until now, Bill and Victoria, who have been very fortunate, they both started from nothing, and each of them walked their own path to become very successful at what they do. Victoria was a makeup artist in Hollywood, and she developed her own line of cosmetics. She always says she went from mascara to medicine. Not a path that you would really foretell. Bill became, he and his partner developed the first infomercial company, which was many years ago. So they have been fortunate to be able to supply their own personal funds. So when I say over 65 million invested, over 60 million of that is their own money, writing personal checks to make sure that this organization, the foundation, comes to understand and finds a functional cure for NMO. One of the first things we knew that had to happen was we needed to facilitate clinical trials, studies with patients, learn the disease. To do that, we had to become well acquainted with any industry member, any pharma company who might want to take that step with patients to learn this disease, which we did. We formed an international industry council, and they're still very active today. One of them is Alexion, who you just heard about with the FDA-approved drug. The other 2 right now, it was Genentech Roche, Chugai Genentech Roche, and then it's Viela Bio. So we've been fortunate to work with them. We also knew we needed a biorepository. We need patient specimens. We need to have blood draws. We needed to have those for the scientific research to be able to find this cure for NMO. Along with that, we had to gather a lot of data from patients. And Michael Yeaman, who you're going to hear from soon, always says to patients, you inform us. You really are the ones who tell us about this disease. We learned a lot from you. The answer's in you. Michael, I hope I didn't steal your thunder. Circles is that data repository and biospecimen repository, of which there are now over 90,000 specimens, unique tubes of from blood draws to help our researchers study NMO, which has fueled about 40 research projects and growing. We also knew that we needed to have an international clinical consortium. The neurologists around this world who are wholly engaged and dedicated to learning more to solve this disease. They're clinicians who treat NMO patients. We have one right here on the stage. And besides Dr. Lana, there are 99 others. We have exactly right now 100 industry international clinical consortium members, so we're very proud to have them. There was this, what we call IPND, which you just heard about, the International Panel for the NMO Diagnosis. That was led by Dean Wingerchuk and Brian Weinshanker, Mayo Clinic, who led a team of 20 researchers, clinical researchers around the globe. They did a lit review, cited over 250 studies. The study itself was almost 2 years long, and the outcome of it is such that there's such better understanding globally about how to diagnose this disease, which didn't exist before. And let's face it, we don't want more people to have NMO, but if they do, we want everybody to know exactly what the diagnosis is. In addition to that, we've always been very adamant about national and international conferences. Conferences we host, conferences we attend. We believe from day one the best way to move forward with this disease is to bring people together to learn about NMO. And then advocacy, patient advocacy, and resources matter a lot, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. One of the programs that we've just launched is called NMO Stories, and actually it's not that it's actually been in existence for a while, but we're trying to make it much wider known, because we know that for every patient, every caregiver, it isn't just restricted to patients. There is a story, and we are accumulating on a web portal every patient's story around the globe of anyone who wants to tell it. And there's a simple web page that you go to that you can type your story in. You can upload a photo if you'd like, and you can reveal your name or not. You can be anonymous if that's your choice. Of course, it's always a positive thing as well. But the most important thing is patient voices, patient stories, caregiver stories. Those stories matter a lot, and there are clinicians and others. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about that today, to make you aware of it, to encourage you, if possible, if you're interested, or if it helps you. It certainly helps us, for us to learn your story. Here's something that we've learned from patient stories already. An NMO female patient. Before NMO, I was a very active, happily employed mother and wife. Now I cannot work because of my disabilities and incontinence issues. I have to rely on special transportation services, which are often unreliable. Costs of medicines and services are taking a big toll on my family. A male patient, somebody who has the diagnosis of NMO, and we know that there are more female than male, but there are certainly male NMO patients. And here's one who says, as an NMO patient, I'm concerned that my condition will worsen to the point I will become a burden on my family, physically, financially, and emotionally. I do not want to be alone, and I do not want to be a burden to them or anyone. So I encourage you to tell your story. Here's a few more excerpts. I always told myself the phrase, no matter how dark the panorama looked, I had to see light in the dark. I was 26-year-old working in the Pentagon. My fingers were tingling, and slowly I couldn't feel them. That's from an active duty Native sailor. Danielle, every day I try something new, trying to overcome my own body and go beyond. Many of our patients say, I may have NMO, but NMO doesn't have me. And it's a beautiful, beautiful thought. So Where shall you begin? Wherever you feel like the best place is. It may be at the beginning, it may be now, moving backward, whatever the role that your story takes. Really encourage you, please, to help us and help us gather understandings of the path that NMO patients walk worldwide. There's another thing at the end of this session. We will be distributing to only the NMO patients. We are gathering patient data around the world, and Dr. Lana is helping us again with this, just translated a survey. It's just 1 page for treatment, 1 page for relapse, but you'll have an opportunity to complete that. And I just want to thank you from the bottom of our hearts, because we collect your responses, and this is how you help us learn more about NMO. Really want to thank you in advance. We call it the NMO Pro, which stands for NMO Patient Reported Outcomes. Next, I'm happy to share